guys, ebaby here. If you're new here, welcome to the ebaby family, and don't forget to subscribe to become part of the cutest gang on the internet, the ebabies. I'm sorry, I'm not wearing makeup, so I mean I am wearing lashes, but that's about it. So I'm gonna stay far from the camera because I could see how tired I am when I get close to the camera, and I'm trying to get this video done for you guys. Oh my god, it's 11:11. Oh my god, look at this. Wait. Oh, just missed it. Okay, but like you can see it's like 11:12 now. So it's literally 11:11, guys. So make a wish while I pick this up. Alright, okay guys, so today's video is gonna be a little different as per like my recent content. It's a sit down video, and today I'm gonna be talking about some unsolved mysteries, as you've seen in the title. There's two cases and one very suspicious disease. Did not prepare an intro. It is, I mean, it's only 11:13, but yesterday I went to see the Perseids. I don't know if you guys watched that, but it's a meteor shower that actually happens always like August 12 and 13, and yeah, it's really nice. There's a lot of shooting stars. I saw 2 shooting stars. It was great, but it's like late at night, after midnight, so I went to bed extremely late, and I'm extremely late on my work because I was away at home. So this is why I'm doing this right now on a Sunday night, because I'm trying to be consistent for you guys. Okay. So the third unsolved mystery we will be looking at today is the 8-day bride, and I was really interested in this case because, I don't know, it just seems odd, an 8-day bride, but also because Christina, the victim of this crime, actually lived really close to my place, like literally a couple street down. She lived in Mimico, Ontario. She worked there in a bank, and she also met who she said was the love of her life, a war veteran named John Ray Kettlewell, whose nickname was Jack. Christina and Jack were always hanging out with Jack's best friend, Ronald. Ronald Barry was a professional ballroom dancer. The family didn't really like this weird triangle going on between them. They always felt like maybe Ronald was in love with Christina or something weird was going on, and they weren't very supportive of Christina's relationship with Jack either. Now, it's not clear why they weren't supportive of it, or was it because of Ronald? I don't know, but parents are usually right. I think maybe they knew some things, you know, and they could like feel that she wasn't very secure in this relationship, but they did not like Jack, and that is why on May 12, 1947, a 22-year-old Christina and 26-year-old Jack decided to elope and get married. A few days after their elopement, they headed down to Ronald's cottage, which was extremely secluded. They literally had to take a boat to get to the cottage, which is like, could be cute because it's like, oh, it's a honeymoon, you know, you want to be like alone, but they weren't alone. Ronald tagged along. And I get if like you guys are super friends, you're always hanging out, that I could justify, but the honeymoon, that's just weird. That's just super weird. While they were at the cottage, it was reported that Christina was acting out of character. She was looking very lost, like she was in a daze, and she was having these crying fits. And Ronald also said that she had multiple conversations with her about whether or not Jack was truly in love with her. I'm not sure if anything happened at the cottage. Why would she be so worried that her husband didn't love her? They just got married, but maybe she saw something. On May 20th, Ronald decided to go sunbathing, so he left the cottage, and when he returned, he found his cottage burning, and inside was Jack. He was injured, so Ronald pulled him out quickly. He grabbed some letters, and he then tried to find Christina, but he could not find her anywhere. So he decided to head to the hospital with Jack. But let's remember, he said he he could not find her anywhere, but then again, that's what he said, and there's no other witnesses of this. While the two men were at the hospital, the first responder and firefighters were trying to extinguish the fire and apparently weren't really looking for Christina because she was found hours later, only 150 feet away from the cottage by the river, and her face was 9 inches into the water. But weirdly enough, the first responders that went to get water from the river to extinguish the fire, because it was in a very secluded, remote place where you could only access it by boat, so there's no fire trucks, so they had to go to the river and get water, and they did not see her body, which is something you would notice, I would assume, because they don't say that her body was covered or anything. And why weren't they looking for her? Ultimately, the autopsy revealed that Christina had a lot of codeine in her body, which could explain why she looked so hazy and lost. And interestingly enough, codeine was also found in Jack's body when he went to the hospital to get treated. She had no burnt marks anywhere or any scratches, as if she wasn't even in the house while it was burning. The coroner declared that her cause of death was a drowning. So now let's get into some of the theories. The first theory is that this was a murder. That theory came up because you remember I said Ronald took letters from the burning house. Those letters were suicide notes from Christina. The first one was written 5 weeks before the wedding, and in it she said that she was going to herself if Jack doesn't marry her. The second letter was a little more extreme and is where that theory comes from, because in the second letter, which was written a few days after, she said that she could not bear to see Jack with anyone else, so she was gonna kill them both. In that letter she wrote, "When you love someone, you really love him, and I know there's no one for me but Jack, and if I cannot have him, then I do not intend anyone else to." So first of all, if she did write those letters, I mean, they were authenticated. I believe they said that it was actually her signature and everything, but I don't know. If she had codeine in her system, someone might have made her sign it without her really realizing. But if this is actually how their relationship was, it seems like it was a very toxic relationship. In the final note, as she wrote, "Ronnie is in the boat outside somewhere. By the time he gets back, everything will be over with. He must have been afraid something would happen because he decided to stay an extra day to make sure that we go back to Toronto with him." A letter that she then gave to Ronnie and told him to mail it to the address of the person they were staying with prior to coming to the cottage. And again, I don't know why she would send that letter to the guy they stayed with. I think the most confusing thing to me too in that letter is that she says Ronnie is in the boat somewhere, and then she gives the letter to Ronald. Ronnie is Ronald. How is he in the boat and in the house at the same time? I'm confused. It doesn't make sense to me. It kind of sounds to me like Ronald was maybe putting the blame on her. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, I think it's a bit weird, and this is what is leading us to our second theory, which was also a theory that was looked into by the police, but I am also putting my own thoughts in there. The theory that came up during the inquest was that the two men were potentially lovers and were trying to commit insurance fraud, and that is because both men took a number of insurance policies a few days before the murder. Jack had taken a life insurance policy on both himself and Christina, and he even added an indemnity clause, which meant that if the death was accidental, the beneficiary would get double the money. And that person was Ronald for both policies. And Ronald also took an insurance on his cottage that mysteriously burned down a couple days after. So you see now why I think maybe this was staged, and perhaps Ronnie wrote those letters making Christina appear crazy when really what they wanted was money and get rid of Christina because the two were in love. And the reason why people believed that they were in love is because during the inquest it was revealed that Christina was upset about a potentially unnatural relationship between Ronald and Jack. And in the 1940s, an unnatural relationship between two men is basically saying we believe they could be gay lovers. During an interrogation, Jack also admitted that he was was having an intimate relationship with Ronnie, but he later dismissed the claim, saying that the police coerced him into saying that because they were trying to build a case. In spite of all that evidence, once the jury looked at both sides of the argument, they ultimately said that they could not agree on whether or not Christina Kettlewell's death was the result of foul play, and thus this case has remained unsolved. On to our next case, JonBenet Ramsey. You can skip to the theories if you know the background of the story, but there is actually a new update on the case, which is why I decided to cover it, although it is a very well-known case that has been covered many times. So stay tuned at least for the theories, because there has been some development. At 5:52 a.m. on December 26, 1996, Patsy Ramsey made a call to the police to report her daughter missing after she found a ransom note on the stairs inside her house.
911 emergency. Police. What's going on? 15th Street. What's going on there, ma'am?
We have a kidnapping. Hurry, please.
Explain to me what's going on, okay?
There's a note left and our daughter's gone.
A note was left and your daughter is gone? How old is your daughter?
6 years old. She's gone. 6 years old.
How long ago was this?
I don't know. I just found the note. And my daughter's gone.
Does it say who took her?
What?
Does it say who took her?
I don't know. There's a ransom note here.
It's a ransom note?
It says SBTC. Victory. Please.
Okay, what's your name? Are you
Patsy Ramsey, I'm the mother. Oh my God. Please.
I'm sending an officer over, okay?
Please.
Do you know how long she's been gone?
No, I don't. Please, we just got out. Is she right here? Oh my God, please.
Okay,
Please, there's somebody.
I am, honey.
Please.
Take a deep breath away,
Please,
okay?
hurry.
Patsy.
When the police arrived at the Ramsey residence, they gathered the note alongside information from the family, but they did not search the house because they thought JonBenet had been. However, only 8 hours later, JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, found his daughter's body in the basement. At first, John thought that his daughter was still alive, so he grabbed her from the ground and ran upstairs, only to realize that she was already gone. Because of that, the crime scene was highly contaminated, and it made it very difficult to gather proper evidence for this case. JonBenet's mouth was covered with duct tape, she had a smooth cord around her neck, and she had 2 burnt marks. The autopsy report said that the cause of her death was a hit to the head, but the coroner said that she ultimately died from. So now let's get into some theories, because there are a lot on this case. So the first theory is the first theory that the cops initially thought, and that is that the parents did it. And the reason for that is many of the evidence pointed to the unlikelihood of an intruder having entered the house and done this. Not only were there no signs of break-in, well, initially, but apparently they did find a broken window later. But it was also winter, because this was December 26th, and there was a lot of snow, and they did not find any footprints in the snow. Most importantly, the rope that had been used to her had been tightened with one of Patty's paintbrush. And not only that, the ransom note was written with a pen and paper from inside the house, which is really weird if you think about it. The intruder comes not prepared at all, writes the ransom note with your stuff. I guess it could be kind of smart, I guess, because they were inside the house while all of this was happening too. It is a bit odd to think that somebody, an intruder, came inside the house, wrote a ransom note, scrapped it, tried again, then left it on the stairs while he went to get JonBenet and ended up instead of kidnapping her. And not only is that weird, but the ransom note itself is really weirdly dramatic. Someone who was known to be very dramatic was Patsy Ramsey, JonBenet's mother. I'm gonna read you the note. Mr. Ramsey, listen carefully. We are a group of individuals that represent a small foreign faction. We do respect your business, but not the country that it serves. At this time, we have your daughter in our possession. She is safe and unharmed, and if you want her to see 1997, you must follow our instructions to the letter. You will withdraw $118,000 from your account. $100,000 will be in $100 bills and the remaining $18,000 in $20 bills. Make sure you bring an adequate size attaché to the bank. When you get home, you will put the money in a brown paper bag. I will call you between 8 and 10 a.m. tomorrow to instruct you on the delivery. The delivery will be exhausting, so I advise you to be rested. If we monitor you getting the money early, we might call you early to arrange an earlier delivery of the money and hence earlier delivery pickup of your daughter. Any deviation of my instructions will result in the immediate execution of your daughter. You will also be denied her remains for proper burial. The two gentlemen watching over your daughter do not particularly like you, so I advise you not to provoke them. Speaking to anyone about your situation, such as the police, FBI, etc., will result in your daughter being beheaded. If we catch you talking to the stray dog, she dies. If you alert bank authorities, she dies. If the money is in any way marked or tampered with, she dies. You will be scanned for electronic devices, and if any are found, she dies. You can try to deceive us, but be warned that we are familiar with law enforcement countermeasures and tactics. You stand a 99% chance of killing your daughter if you try to outsmart us. Follow our instructions and you stand a 100% chance of getting her back. You and your family are under constant scrutiny as well as the authorities. Don't try to grow a brain, John. You are not the only fat cat around, so don't think that will be difficult. Don't underestimate us, John. Use that good sound and common sense of yours. It is up to you now, John. Victory. Signed, SBTC. Now, first of all, that is the longest. Like, this was hard to read, guys. It seems like if this was a real organization, they seem very organized. So why are they writing on pen and paper inside the house? Is it again to like make people, I don't know. I guess I'm confused, so maybe it's working. So another theory that often comes up is that the brother is actually responsible and that he might have accidentally badly injured his sister by either throwing something or hitting her head with something, and the parents thought that she was dead, so they tried covering it up by making it seem like she was murdered. And without realizing, because she was unconscious, they actually killed her because the ultimate cause of death was. And in that case, that would also mean that the ransom note was fake. This theory comes up because it is a well-known fact that the brother and sister often fought.
I remember the casket was small and her eyes were closed. I think one of her eyes was a little bit like droopy or something. And I thought that was weird.
How did you feel seeing her?
A lot of sadness. I don't think I really fully grasped, like, after this I won't see her again.
But in 2006, DNA was found on JonBenet's clothing. Unidentified male DNA that did not correspond to any of the Ramseys, and thus they were exonerated. The following suspect was Gary Oliva. The reason why they started looking into Gary Oliva is because he was arrested on unrelated charges, and they obviously searched all his stuff and they found that he was carrying around a picture of JonBenet. In an article for the Denver Post, Oliva argued that he was carrying around the picture for the following reason. JonBenet's murder touched me deeply. I felt she was an exceptional girl whose death was an exceptional loss. So I felt the need to build a monument, a shrine, to remember this little girl. That is a bit creepy. Especially when you learn that this man actually got arrested in 2016. Well, that was way later, but he got arrested on charges of child pornography. Some of the reasons why they believe that he could have done this is because he had allegedly tried murdering his own mother with the same method of strangulation as JonBenet's case. And also, his high school friend Michael Vale went on an interview with In Touch and said that the night of JonBenet's murder, Gary Oliva had called him and told him, I heard a little girl, and that this happened in Boulder, where JonBenet was murdered. And there were no other little girls or girls at all heard in that area that same night. However, some people have pointed out that for an exclusive, the interviewee gets paid a sum of money, so he might have just been trying to capitalize on the tragedy, because it was a very in the news, especially because she was a pageant girl. The media were really pushing this story, and ultimately his DNA did not match the DNA that was found on JonBenet's clothing, so they did not press charges. Another interesting suspect that the police looked at was Mark Karr, who is now living as a woman named Alexis Reich. The reason why the police started looking into him is because a journalist named Michael Tracy had been having correspondence through emails with him for 4 years, trying to gain his trust in order for him to admit the murder of JonBenet. I am not sure why he really believed that this man was responsible and would admit to this. It's not really clear, but it seemed that the journalist knew something and he really felt like this man was involved, so he sweet talked him, made him believe that he agreed with his twisted beliefs. And the journalist says that it was the most horrible experience of his entire life talking to this person, but he was able to get a confession out of him. In the emails, John referred to Patsy Ramsey as Natty, which was her nickname, I believe, and not a lot of people knew about this, so this was really odd that he would know her nickname. And he also went on to describe everything that happened to JonBenet, but then again, by that time there was so much media coverage that somebody would be able to say this. I'm not gonna get into details as to what was written in the email because it was pretty disturbing, to be honest. If you wanna look it up, you can look it up. But throughout the whole thing, he pretty much said that it was an accident, and he wasn't able to give much details, it seemed, that wasn't already in the press. And it's also been reported that he said that he drugged JonBenet, which was not true. There's no drugs found in the autopsy report. Ultimately, after they tested his DNA, they found that it was not a match and they let him go. Now, why would he confess if he didn't actually do it? A lot of people say it was just for fame, notoriety. Maybe he actually did commit some act of to somebody else and he was trying to punish himself, because after all of this happened, that's when he transitioned into a woman. He says that he underwent a sex change to kill his sex drive completely, because this will prevent him from performing sexual acts, because I'm assuming he's saying that he's other people, or again, he could still be involved in JonBenet's and maybe he had an accomplice, and that accomplice is who the DNA belongs to. Now, I am referring to now Alexis Reich as Mark Karr, because when this happened, he was Mark Karr. So although there were no footprints in the snow, there were footprints inside the house. In fact, there were 2 sets of unidentified footprints inside the house. So that is weird, and that could make sense if there were 2 people, for example, a car and an accomplice, or 2 completely mysterious people. But nobody has yet to be able to match the DNA on JonBenet's clothing, even after testing it against the entire database of 1.4 million samples. They could not match anyone to the DNA. Every suspect that they tried to match DNA to did not work. And John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, is getting really frustrated with no results and nobody outside of the 2 same investigators that were on the case from the beginning. He wants a new solution, and someone is actually able to provide him that. In fact, Cece Moore, a DNA detective, believes that she could identify the mystery men through a DNA genealogy, which is a tool that is usually used to track your relatives, but she uses it to create a chart around the mystery person and identify who that person is. even if they had never provided their DNA, through making a family tree, she's able to pinpoint who that person is. In fact, she is the one that was able to catch the Golden State Killer, and she also solved over 400 cold cases.
Learning a little bit about DNA gave John a great deal of hope. He reasoned if the Golden State Killer could be found, so too could JonBenet's murderer.
And let's use the latest technology, stuff we have that's come along in the last 10 years. And let's see what we got then.
So at long last, JonBenet's killer could be found?
Absolutely. There are people all over the world that want to see her brought to justice, who want to know what happened and who want the answers.
If the DNA found on JonBenet is viable, how long could it take to catch her?
It might only be a matter of hours before that DNA contributor is identified.
So this means that there's really a chance to finally find JonBenet's murder. But there's one small issue, and that is that the police will not release the DNA. And why is that? Not sure. Incompetence, ignorance. Maybe they still believe the Ramseys did it, although they were technically exonerated, because as I said, they are the same people that were there from the beginning, and these two detectives really believed that the Ramseys were responsible, so they never really had a good relationship with the family. And the only detective who really believed in them was always ridiculed, and he eventually passed away, so he can't help them anymore. But he did set up a petition for the police to release the DNA, so I will leave a link down below if you want to sign that petition. Hopefully I will find it. Hopefully it's still going. If it is, I will put it down there. But yes, so that is the big update on the case. JonBenet's murder could become solved, but for now it remains unsolved. The sonic sickness. While on a mission in Havana, Cuba in 2016, two spies had to seek medical help as they were experiencing symptoms of dizziness, nausea, ear ringing, and headaches. The doctor could not figure out what was wrong with them. They had all the symptoms of a concussion, but on the scans there were no signs of a concussion, and none of them could recall hitting their head. What they did recall though is a piercing, buzzing sound right before the symptoms started. These people were getting symptoms and they couldn't go to work. They had to quit their job. They had to take a leave of absence because the symptoms were not stopping, and there were no way to stop them because doctors just didn't know what was going on. But how could a sound make you sick? Most of them believed that the problem was psychological, and as spies were the first target, the mysterious illness was kept secret. But as more and more spies started getting sick, and also American diplomats and defense officials, it became really hard to ignore the issue, especially because a lot of embassy employees, especially in Cuba, the American diplomats and the people that just worked at the embassy were very fearful, because at this point they were becoming aware of the issue and they were afraid they were going to be targeted too. And this actually created a shortage of employees at the embassy and diplomats and everything. And to this day, no one really knows what exactly is the cause of this illness. There are theories which we will be looking at, but the US government and scientists cannot seem to agree as to what is the cause of this illness that has targeted hundreds of US spies, American diplomats, and defense officials in multiple countries including Cuba, China, Russia, and Vienna. So now let's get into some of the theories. The first theory is that it is a psychological illness or a type of contagious stress. I personally do not really agree with this theory. I mean, I could see how in some cases it might have been the case. There are some people that maybe didn't really have the illness and thought they had it because of that, but I don't know. sound. The argument is made by Dr. Robert W. Ballo, a professor of neurology at UCLA. He believes that what is happening is a mass placebo effect caused by the stress of a potential threat. He believes that because people are monitoring their symptoms because they're afraid they might be targeted, they are creating the symptoms, like they are confusing their anxiety symptoms with that. Dizziness, nausea, ear ringing, headaches could be related to anxiety. You could definitely get nausea and dizziness from anxiety. Ear ringing, I don't know, but there were a lot of other symptoms that people were reporting. So yeah, I could understand how some people were maybe not sick and were just stressed out, but I still think this is a real illness and it's pretty crazy that a sound can make you incapacitated. But yeah, let's move on to the next theory. Microwaves. And I don't mean what you cook your hot pockets in. I mean microwaves, like the energy that heat up your food, but at a much higher level. Like, I mean, they've always told you don't look at the microwave, right? They told us that when we were young. They were like, don't look at the microwave, like when your food's getting served. I mean, I was always told that. Let me know if that's a thing for you too. But yes, microwaves are not good, guys, if they, go through your brain. Professor James Lynn had heard about the illness and he believed that he knew what was responsible for the sound people were hearing. What he says is that this sound is actually a pressure wave from the microwave entering the brain and passing through. And this is caused by high power microwaves. And that is why you do not hear a buzzing sound if you stare at your microwave. But at high power, microwaves have the power to cause this sound inside your brain, which he believes triggers the symptoms. His argument is backed up by the fact that he himself conducted an experiment in the 70s using microwaves. He would sit in a chair with an antenna at the back, and his lab partner would shoot microwaves at the antenna, which would make the microwave go through his head. And while conducting the experiment, he noticed that it created sounds inside his brain. But he never used very high-powered microwaves because he did not want to have brain damage. So if it is microwaves indeed, and somebody has some kind of microwave weapon, whatever that is supposed to look like, anything that comes to my head is like those like laser guns in Rick and Morty. Probably doesn't look like that. It's probably literally like a pen or like in their glasses or something. But who would be sending high-powered microwaves targeting spies and American diplomats? Somebody's got beef with the States. But who is it? Well, it's not official, but Russia is pretty suspicious, guys. And many do believe that they could be responsible for the attack because they have experimented with microwaves in the past. In fact, our dear Professor James Lynn was invited to their lab in the 70s because they wanted an alternative perspective on the subject. Their lab was very modern, but their practice were very primitive, to say the least. The subject was dunked in salt water with only their heads popping out, and someone would shoot very high powered. They didn't have like a max, they were just trying everything and just shooting with no concern at all. So of course the US spies did keep an eye on the research, but ultimately the Defense Intelligence Agency said that there was no evidence of a microwave weapon. However, they said, and I quote, "Their internal sound perception research has great potential for development into a system for disorienting or disrupting the behavior patterns of military or diplomatic personnel." In 2020, a report by the National Academy of Science was released. The study took evidence from both scientists and clinicians, as well as 8 victims. And after looking at all possibilities, they concluded that the most likely cause was microwaves. And although the study was sponsored by the state, somehow they have yet to accept this conclusion, and they still say that the cause is unknown and that microwaves being the cause is only a plausible hypothesis. Because many of the victims felt like they were not being heard, they decided to regroup and hire a lawyer, Mark Karr, who specializes in national security. And that lawyer believes that the US government is really downplaying the situation, and the reason for that, he says, maybe that they are afraid that it's gonna open a Pandora's box, because this illness apparently has been around for a very long time. In fact, he believes that the US have known about this since the early 60s. So maybe there's been many cases throughout the years that have been ignored, and because of that, they are trying to keep it hush-hush. This makes a lot of sense because even in the 70s, there had been an incident where microwaves were involved because, once again, Russia. In fact, yes, the American embassy in Russia was flooded with low-level microwaves. So not the same type, but long exposure to low-level microwaves is actually really dangerous. Once again, that's why you don't look at your microwave while it is microwaving your food. And so the people in this building had always microwaves running through them, and the reason for it is unclear. Russia said that it was to block the signal blockers, but it's really unclear. What is clear is that there were microwaves in that building, and they were trying to keep it hush-hush, because even when the ambassador at the time told them that he didn't want any of those microwaves and that if they didn't get rid of it, he would quit, the US just told him to not make a fuss. And because he was very dedicated to his job, he decided to not say anything and keep his job. And one day his eyes started bleeding, and he eventually died from leukemia. And there is research out there that actually say that long exposure to low-level microwaves will give you cancer. So Russia's looking really suspicious to me right now. And I really personally do think that microwaves are the cause of this, and I really wonder if the states will ever admit it, and what else are we gonna uncover when they do, because it seems like there's a reason why they don't want this to come out. Since the Biden administration has taken over, apparently it's been taken more seriously, but there was still not a lot of updates. But yeah, hopefully they're doing something, but honestly I feel low-key like they're trying to, you know, not do anything about it. But yeah, so with that, this case remains unsolved. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know if you would like to see more of this type of video, and if you have any suggestions of what type of video you would like to see next from me, make sure to comment it down below. I love looking at your guys' suggestions, and if it's something that I'm interested in and I think that a lot of you would enjoy, then I will definitely do it, and I will give you guys a shout out. Also, once again, I will be launching my Patreon very soon, so don't forget to let me know what kind of perks you would like and how much you would be willing to pay for them. Let me know if there are some things that you would like to learn from me, or you would like to have maybe a personalized cameo type video, or a group chat with a couple of you in it, or a private stream once a month where you guys could ask me questions and talk to me. Those are some of the ideas I have, so let me know if you have any more. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!